Okay, so for constructions, you're going to need a compass. You can use this kind of compass, which is the kind that I prefer that I give you in class. You can buy this on Amazon if you want. One of them costs like $6. This is specifically called a slide and measure compass. This is like the best one, I think. It's a little see-through. I like it. The other kind of compass that you could use technically, which I do not like, is these old school ones. These ones are significantly harder to use. So I definitely suggest a slide and measure compass. This is going to be my compass. The first thing that I want you to do, because you've probably never played with these before, is put your finger on the circular part. This clear part should have a little circle. If you look really closely, I'm going to put my finger on here and I should be able to wiggle this back and forth with ease. The hard part is whenever you're holding your finger like this and it may be jerking it because it's actually holding it down. So you always want to hold your finger up because this part will hold down and slide easily on your desk. You also should not be writing on a notebook or a binder. You should be directly on a flat surface. This part is my slider. So this is going to be how I measure things. So you want to be using this as well. There's two circles. I always say use the front one, never use the back one, because you're going to get confused and you're going to go back and forth and you need to stick with one. I always use the front. I think you should use the front. Do what you want. Okay. So now what we're going to do is the first thing is copy a line segment. To copy a line segment, I'm going to start by just drawing a line over here. I'm not measuring it. I'm just drawing a random line off to the side. So it doesn't even have to be straight. It could be crooked. It's not a big deal. Okay. It should look like it's either the same size or a little bit longer than the original. I'm going to put a point at the end. I'm going to call this A prime. So from A to A prime, they're both the starting points. I need to figure out where B is going to fall on this line. I'm not actually going to measure it. I'm going to use my compass to measure it. So I'm going to stick my clear needle. If you look, there's a circle there. So I'm going to put it right on A, point A. And I'm going to hold my finger down and I'm going to slide this circle part open to point B. So I'm going to slide it open and I'm going to figure out where B is at. I need to find that point right there. So that circle should be on B. So it's perfectly the same width as B. And I'm going to make an arc using my pencil or my pen. You want to use one arc. You don't want to go back and forth, but if you stick your pen in the circle, it'll make an arc. So you're sticking your pen in there and you're dragging it to make an arc. Using the same measurement, not moving the slider, I'm going to place my needle on A prime. And I'm going to make an arc going through this line. So I put my pen in this hole and I made an arc. So when I move this, I should have an arc that measures from A to B, from A prime to this new spot, which is going to be B prime. You can use a ruler or your straight edge to try to measure it to see if it's just about the same. You might be new at this, so you're probably not going to be perfect, which is okay. We're still learning. So I'm going to do one more, and then you can practice the third one. So I'm going to start by making a straight line. It should be a little bit longer or about the same length as the original. It's always better to go a little bit longer than not have enough. I know my start point is going to be C, so I'm going to call this C prime. It's my new C. I'm going to put the circle on C. And I'm going to open up my slider to D. It's going to measure the length of that segment. So D is right here. So I'm going to make a little arc, putting my pen in that circle. Not moving the slider. I'm going to take the same exact measurement, just bring the compass over, not moving anything, and make the same arc length on the next segment. And I'll call this D prime. And they should look like they're about the same length. That is copying a line segment. The next thing we're going to do, so you can do number 3, we're going to go to copy an angle. So I'm going to put my needle. Oh, first I need to draw a ray. I'm sorry. So first I'm going to just draw one of the rays. I'll draw this one over here. I'm just going to draw some line. Don't worry about if it's exactly the same shape or same size or whatever. And then I'm going to put my needle on the vertex of the angle. And I'm going to close this so that way it is within the arrow and the vertex. So that way my hole is between the arrow and the vertex. So I'm going to just go like this. It doesn't have to be a perfect amount, but I'm going to make an arc that goes actually through both rays. So I'm going to put my pen in here and make an arc that goes through both rays. Not moving this arc or not moving the measure. I'm going to slide it over to the vertex. Now I'm going to make an arc that goes all the way up because I need this angle to be slid basically over here. Now I need to figure out how wide my angle needs to be. Is it going to be this wide or is it going to be this wide? I need to figure out how wide it's going to be. So I'm going to put my needle on one of these intersections and I'm going to move my slider to the other intersection. So if I put my needle here, match it up to the intersection, and I'm going to move my slider to the intersection that's right here. So I obviously need to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller and stop whenever I see the intersection in that circle. I'm going to make a little arc right there. That's measuring how much the angle actually opens. Bring it over here and make an arc. So I measured the width of how much it's opening, made an arc, put the needle here, it was here, made an arc. Now I'm going to connect the vertex to where these two arcs meet. 2 points make a line. So I'm going to use the edge of my compass, the ruler portion, to connect the vertex to the intersection of where the two arcs meet. That's copying an angle. If I had a protractor, I could measure from here to here, and it should be roughly the same. So I'll explain it again. Number 5, I have an angle. It looks like a right angle. We don't know if it's exactly a right angle. I'm going to start by making just a ray off to the side. And then I'm going to put my needle on the vertex of the angle. And I want to open up this. I don't want it too far. I don't want it past the arrow. I want it between halfway and the arrow. So I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to draw an arc that goes through the entire angle from ray to ray. Sliding my needle over, this will be the vertex of my new angle. And I'm going to make an arc that goes through this entire portion. I don't know how wide it is, so you definitely want to make sure your new arc is a little bit longer, because I know this is kind of like a right angle, so my arc needs to be wide. Now I'm going to put my needle here and my slider here to measure the width of how much this angle is actually opening. And I'm going to put an arc going through that intersection using my pencil. Oh, the lights just turned off in my classroom. Oh, there they go. Okay. So now using the same measurement from here to here, I'm going to move my compass from here to here, making a new arc. I'm going to connect the vertex to this point because the vertex connects to this point. It's creating roughly the same exact angle. They should be two congruent angles. There's number 6 that you can try to copy an angle. We're going to move on to an angle bisector. An angle bisector is taking an angle, and bisecting it, which is cutting it into two congruent pieces. Or two congruent angles. So I want to split this angle in half. So now this one, I'm going to put my needle on the vertex. And just like I did for copying an angle, I'm going to start by making a big arc that goes through both rays. Using the same measurement, I'm going to move my needle to the intersection that I just created with the arc and the original ray. And I'm going to make an arc out in front of the angle. So I'm going to put an arc out here. Using the same measurement, I'm now going to move my needle to this intersection and make an arc so that way they cross in front of the angle. Where they cross and the vertex will create a ray that bisects the angle. This is cutting the original angle into two congruent little angles. So this is like A, B, C. This would be like C, B, D. So I have two interior angles that are the same. These are congruent measures. If I knew that, and I don't know, but if I knew this is 27 degrees, then I would know that this is 27 degrees, making the entire angle 54 degrees because 27 plus 27 makes the whole angle. So it's cutting it into two congruent angles. So we'll do it again. Number 8. I'm going to take my angle that I have. I'm going to start by making an arc that goes through both angles or both rays. And then I'm going to move my needle to one of the intersections I just created. And I'm going to make an arc out front of the angle. I'm also going to move it here. And I'm going to make an arc that intersects with the arc that I just made on the other side. So where they intersect is creating a point. I'm going to connect the point to the vertex. This is going to create two equal angles, cutting the larger angle in half, creating two equal pieces. So once again, if I know that this is, I don't know, 42 degrees, and I know that this is 42 degrees because it's cutting it in half, the whole angle would be 84 degrees. The large angle, the original. So you can try number 9. We're going to move to a perpendicular bisector. A perpendicular bisector. Perpendicular means 90 degrees. Bisector means same thing. We're going to cut it into two congruent. And this time it's not an angle, but it's a segment. So I'm going to start by taking my line segment. I'm going to put my needle on one of the endpoints, either one. And I want to make sure that my slider is not more than the length of the original segment. I don't want it super close either. I always like to be closer to the end, like 3/4 of the length. So I don't want to be past the end point. I want to be between the middle and the end. And then what I'm going to do is, now that I have this lined up here, I'm going to make an arc above it and below it using my pencil, using the same exact measurement above and below. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my compass, move my needle to this side. So I'm going to slide it using the same measurement. It's a little bit hard because I got to use my left hand. I'm going to put my finger on the circle, and I'm going to make an arc above it, just like I did, and below it. Where these two arcs cross is going to create a line going through the segment, creating a 90-degree perpendicular bisector of the original segment. So this piece is actually congruent to this piece. It's creating two equal parts. And not only is it doing that, but it's creating a 90-degree angle as well. So same thing, I'm going to take this one. I don't want it to be more than the length of the segment. Right now it's like a little bit more. I want to make it like 3/4 of the way. I'm going to go above the segment with an arc, below the segment with an arc, and then I'm going to flip using the same measurements. Going above the line segments and below the line segments. Once I have that, I'm going to draw a line going through my arcs. This is creating a perpendicular bisector of my segment. This is creating it 90 degrees, perpendicular, and it's two congruent pieces. So I'll put one tick and one tick. Each side is congruent to another. If I knew this was 2 centimeters, this would also be 2 centimeters. If I knew this was 1.5 inches, this side would also be 1.5 inches. So it's bisecting it, making it two congruent pieces. Now we have perpendicular bisector through a point not on the line. So I'm still creating a perpendicular bisector, but now I'm given a point that's not on my line. I can't use my endpoints. I'm using the point that's not on the line. I'm going to start by making my needle start at point A. Hold it down. And I'm going to make an arc that goes through both sides of my line. So I'm going to make an arc here, lift it a little, and make an arc here. So this is the same radius from here to here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my needle to the intersection I just created. And you are going to need to open it just a little bit. And I'm going to make an arc below. And then I'm going to move my needle over here using the same measurement. I'm going to make an arc below. Where they intersect and to point A, they will create a new line. Creating a 90-degree angle. And I just realized this says perpendicular bisector. This should just be a perpendicular line through a point, not on a line, because these are not two congruent pieces. This one is significantly shorter than this side. So it's a perpendicular line, not a bisector. Sorry. So we'll do it again. Number 13, I have a point not on the line. I'm going to make a perpendicular line to the line that's given. So I'm going to start by putting my needle on my bead. And I'm going to make an arc that goes through the line, through the line. So I'm going to start over here. Arc, over here, arc. Once I have both arcs, I'm going to move my needle to one of their intersections. And I can make an arc above. And then I'm going to move my needle over here. And make an arc above. This is creating an intersection. I'm going to connect my intersection to point B. and it should create a perpendicular line to the original line, meaning it's creating a 90-degree angle. It's not a bisector. It's not cutting that segment into 2 equal parts. The last construction for semester 1 is constructing parallel lines. So for parallel lines, I'm given a point and I'm given a line. This one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing in any transversal that's going to connect A to my line. So I'm going to draw in a transversal, and I'm just going to draw, I don't know, I'll draw it up here. So roll diagonal. The transversal is cutting through my parallel lines. I eventually will have a parallel line that goes through point A. So now I'm going to put my needle on the new intersection I had, and I'm going to create a little arc that goes between this point and point A. So I want my arc to fall between point A and my arc that I have. So I don't want it longer than A. I'm going to scoot it just a little bit. And I'm going to draw an arc that connects these two. So it's going to go from the bottom to the top. Using the same arc measure, I'm going to put my needle on point A. And I'm going to draw an arc that goes through here. Notice my transversal was a little short, so I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to extend that slightly. Now I'm going to measure the width of this angle right here. So I'm going to go put my needle here and open up to that intersection. So my intersection's in there. I'm going to draw a little tiny arc. Using that same measure, I'm going to bring it here. And make an arc below. I can use this new point and point A to construct a parallel line to the line that's given. So we'll do another one. 15, constructing a parallel line through a point not on the line. I'm going to start by creating a transversal, and it could go this way or this way. It doesn't matter. I'm going to draw this way because I'm right-handed and it tends to be easier. So I'm going to draw a transversal. We want it to be a diagonal. I'm going to make sure I extend a little bit longer because last time I ran out of space, so I extended it. Now I'm going to put my needle here and I'm going to make an arc going through this little tiny baby ink. You don't want it to go past point B. So that intersection is right below B. I'm going to use the same arc measure to go from B out here. I have matching arcs. Now I'm going to measure the width of this angle, putting my needle on that intersection, closing this up just a little bit. That's a close call. That's a very close call. And I'm going to put a little baby arc here. And I'm going to use that same measure, bring my needle here, make an arc below. This point and point B will make parallel lines. Together. Hopefully this helps. Keep practicing. Ta-ta for now.